You see what I'm getting at here? I understood that what happens is you enter the happy dream, and then you exist in the happy dream until God's plan, okay, causes you to wake up, to become enlightened. So as long as there's any suffering in the world, you can't be in the happy dream, therefore no one can wake up. You see the conundrum that I'm getting here. So therefore no one has ever awakened because as long as one of the brotherhood is suffering, then no one can awaken. That's what I'm hearing, and that's my problem.
Until everyone is awake, the brotherhood as a whole is not totally awake. And in that sense, I am not totally awake. Because there are those of my brothers and sisters who are insisting on their dreams.
So you're not having any fun either?
I will tell you that once you begin to recognize the divine character and nature of embodying God in acts in your world, whether such intent and action is easy for you or not because of your prior state of mind, your separated state of mind, you begin to enjoy casting your vote. And you begin to feel the joy of the brotherhood that is awake as they rejoice in every act of embodying the Father's will that every single one of you engages in, no matter how tiny it is. When I say it's not fun, I am saying it so that you will understand that the fear you feel when you dare to cast your vote is an integral part of shifting out of the mutually agreed upon definitions, out of the group consensus. And that is not justification for refraining from casting your vote.
But don't you reach a point somewhere along the line where you just don't care? You don't care if it rocks the boat. You don't care if you just want to do the right thing, so to speak, and cast the vote and say, this is what I stand for, and the chips fall where they may, and it becomes less of a fearful thing through the practice of it.
That is correct.
Okay.
But mind you, the happy dream is not going to be an inner bliss that you experience through giving some ethereal definition to the suffering that is going on, so that you somehow arrive at the insane idea that the suffering that's going on isn't really suffering, but some part of the development and refinement of the souls who appear to be suffering, that is absolutely essential to their waking up, and therefore is fulfilling God's purpose, and it doesn't need to be addressed. It doesn't call for correction. It doesn't call for you or anyone else to somehow get food into their mouth, or somehow hug that little girl or that little boy, dirty little girl and dirty little boy living in a hovel who has tears streaming down his or her face, and comforting him or comforting her, and embodying love and embodying the elements of the happy dream so that the situation can be transformed, because truth and love has been illuminated to them by your actions. And as their tears are wiped away, and as there are fewer and fewer occasions for them to have tears, the happy dream is coming into view. But the happy dream is not private and isn't something you can engage in all by yourself. Does that answer your question?
Well, I was having a lot more fun before you answered my question. I'll tell you that. See, there's a thing about that I'm feeling, is that I'm feeling like I'm right where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I feel guided to do that.
You are, and you're here, and you're hearing me say what I'm saying.
Right. But then there's another thing, for instance, is where I think that what you focus on expands. And so if I'm spending my time, okay, thinking about all the people that are starving and suffering in the world and how I should be out helping them.
Remember though, we're not talking about generic suffering. All the people in the world who are suffering. You see suffering, and there is suffering going on in your immediate vicinity.
Right.
And you can find those places where you can embody God. You see.
Right. It's like saying love the world. Well, that's incomprehensible to me, but I can love the guy standing in front of me who's wasting everyone's time in line because he's fumbling around or not organized or whatever, and I can say, I'm not going to, become irate about this. I'm going to Father, help me see this in another way, or smile at somebody and say hello when you know they're down, or something.
Absolutely.
It's what's on your plate in front of you.
That is correct.
But when you see transformation occur, that is lift. It's a heart lifting thing to see that.
Yes.
And so that makes me happy.
Yes.
So I relish it.
Yes.
And so...
And it should inspire you to enlarge your circle so that you are thinking about the starving children in Africa.
So we can have some fun, right? I'm not being cocky here or anything. What I'm getting at is taking things too seriously really gets depressing. You see what I'm getting at? And can really, it's difficult to be in that state of mind and impart a hugging, loving attitude towards the next person who needs a little goose.
But this is where it's needed. This is where the call is. What can I say? It's time to sober up. It's time to abandon the value of giddy fun, irrelevant fun. It's time to find a way to engage with each other in a way that is truly helpful and truly transforms. And in the process of doing that, being provided with the experience of your true function, which will bring you joy, not fun. And joy is far deeper and far more infinite than fun.
Well, I certainly had enough, so I'll pass the mic. I'm going to let it settle.
You said one word that caught my ear. You said, when one stands out, if I understood you correctly, of course. You said, war starts when an individual deviates from the agreed upon definitions. And you went on to say it is the seeing it as God would have us see it with God as one, which not necessarily says yes or no. In today's world...
No. Let's remain clear as we move along. It will necessarily mean saying a yes or a no, but not as for or against. The yes or no, when it arises out of your union with God,
that will be a yes.
That will be a yes or it will be a no. But it will not be a yes for or against some group, and it will not be a no for or against a group. In other words, the yes or the no will not be part of a conflict. It will be a simple acknowledgement of fact, like no, 2 plus 2 is not 5. Yes, 2 plus 2 is 4.
Okay. But if the question of the individual who's causing the war says, I have independence, I will do what I want with my world, and the rest of the world can take a flying leap. So now we have a group, we have an individual who sees it another way, by defined definition that the world should be at peace, and that's going to cause a war. Or at least we're told by someone else in the group that says, I see it differently, and therefore I'm going to war.
Yes.
And then you compound that by war is justified when people are being harmed. I'm confused.
When I am speaking of casting your vote, I am not speaking of asserting a yes or a no from an unjoined place. The group consensus is a given element of the unjoined place. Therefore, everything that goes on is a tension that shifts according to the majority consensus of the group. When someone stands up with an original idea or with a new definition that he wants to introduce for agreement, that one is immediately met with resistance. And that's where wars get started. When an individual who has been part of a group consensus decides to give his attention to the altar once again, to connect with the Father, desiring to be filled with truth and what love is, so that he might embody it. That one introduces a new idea, not from an unjoined place. And that one's introduction of the idea will not arouse great resistance, because it will be done with love. And it will be done in language that can be understood by those involved in group consensus, so that shift of perception can occur without arousing the ire of the egos that had been governing the group consensus. Does that clarify things for you?
No. Would it be too outrageous to ask for us to take some examples and say this is an example of, and this is not an example of? For example, could we take the UN as a group? Could we take the Iraq situation and identify the perspective of this, what you're describing, and then take the US position and then take the French position, which is all different? And where in this real life circumstance are we seeing the examples that you're illustrating and we're trying to get through? Maybe that is not a way to approach it, but it's an idea.
I will tell you that you're not seeing examples of what I'm talking about.
Okay. Maybe you could tell us why then, because that's what we're being asked to do today, is to either, support our country and the dominance.
Who is asking that of you?
Our government.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not.
I agree. But that seems, when you said war, that's what got me thinking about that.
I understand.
Wrongly, but thinking.
I am addressing in this fashion a very small part of the population of your planet. And every single one of you is, to one degree or another, part of a member, you might say, of a group that lives by mutually agreed upon definitions. And one of the mutually agreed upon definitions that you live by is that you are the result of a physical event. When a sperm and an egg join. And that you are one of the creatures on this planet that is a result of a big bang, a purely physical event. And you don't know, significantly know, that this is a definition and not the truth. And that you are, in fact, the very presence of God embodied, and that the Father's perspective is your natural inheritance that you could never lose. And so what am I doing? I am continually nudging and finessing you into considering things differently and finding ways to do it that cause you to be curious enough to let something new in and perhaps become preoccupied with a whole new range of ideas, thoughts, perspectives that will pave the way for future growth to happen even more easily and more spontaneously. I am, in every word I say, speaking to egos in a way that does not reinforce your egohood, and so I don't appear to be a threat. I don't appear to be against you. And yet I'm absolutely saying, no, I will not join you in reinforcing your ego sense of self. So you have an example of what I'm talking about. It's just that I am speaking to the divine one that you are in such a way that it does not arouse the ire of the ego that you think you are, and thus defeat my purpose, which is to uncover your real purpose to you so that you might come back into your right mind. You see, I can even say that without getting your ego to say, what? I'm not in my right mind? Who the hell are you? You arrogant so-and-so. My reason, my motive, where I'm coming from, which is my union with the Father, causes me to be able to say things that promote change without frightening you. And so when you turn toward the altar and join with the Father, you will find yourself able to be in a way with your brothers and sisters, the group with the mutually agreed upon definitions, in a way that will not appear to be threatening and will spawn or inspire curiosity about things that it had been defended against in the past. Now, there are no private thoughts. Another phrase to think about. No, there are no private thoughts. As a matter of fact, there simply are no private thoughts. And so as each one of you turns toward the altar and listens first, so that what comes forth through you embodies not only the transformational truth, but the nurturing love that allows for the ideas to be heard without instilling fear. That is what I'm talking about when I say, cast your vote. You see, I'm not casting my vote against you stupid egos. Your egohood isn't my concern. Doing something about it is not my concern. There is no such egohood. So I'm not going to attack it. But I'm also not going to use my words in a way that reinforce a sense of egohood. They are well chosen so as to cause you to be interested in something different from reinforcing your egos and finding some, to you, intelligent and constructive reason for doing it. So that you have more interest in doing that than reinforcing your egos. In the beginning, if I spoke about Paul, he became self-conscious. Now I can talk about Paul and he doesn't become self-conscious. Now I can talk to you about your not being an ego without engaging the ego that you think you are. So you have come a ways, you see. Now, because there are no private thoughts, as you join with the Father, and as you are willing to do what Paul is doing right now, embodying the Father, you will find that not only your immediate acts in your immediate neighborhood will trigger transformation, your willingness to make commitment to not being divided within yourself, your willingness to not claim a right to have your own private beneficent thoughts, constitutes a joining, a union with the Father that makes what appears to be your specific contribution more than the contribution could possibly be if it really was just your tiny contribution. And it becomes the leaven that leavens the whole lump. The little bit that has a broad transformational effect in the world. Why? Not because of what you have decided, not because of how focused you can be in presenting the idea, but because you're not conflicted within yourself. When you are not conflicted within yourself, it means that you have abandoned your so-called right to act independently. And in the absence of the introduction of the static of claiming a mind of your own and rights of your own, you're able to experience yourself as what God is being right where you are. The holy self that you are becomes your experience. Not with halos around your head and not with choirs of angels singing, but with simple purity of singleness of purpose set in motion by the Father, that you're willing to embody without embellishing and without feeling that you've been deprived of something essential by not being able to add your own little bias to it, or even have a totally different contribution to give. You see, it has power to change the dream, to improve the dream so that it becomes the happy dream because of the purity, the singleness